Welcome back to our YouTube channel Prerna Plus. Did you all notice any big change during this lockdown? Any guesses? Yes, it's our Mother Nature. Our Mother Nature is healing herself. Every morning we hear chirping of these cute little birds. We see aquatic animals enjoying themselves. At some places, we even see herds of flamingos together. And the best thing that happened is our river Ganga is getting cleaned by her own. Now, without wasting any more time, let me hand over the floor to today's speaker of the evening, Sri Ravikant. Welcome you here, sir.
Good morning, friends. First of all, I would like to thank Prerna, not just for inviting me to give a talk for her channel, but her initiative of starting the Prerna Plus channel. That itself is very appreciable. So, congratulations to Prerna on that. And I also like to appreciate Sheetal Garu, who has been very active citizen in the community, and she has been working on so many issues. And the way she is encouraging Prerna, especially with respect to community, towards community, is very very appreciable. Thank you very much, Sheetal Garu, for that. And of course, thank you to both of you for asking me to be a part of Prerna Plus channel. So today, before going into the topic, I'm Ravikant Reddy. I'm the founder president of an environmental NGO called MECONS, which stands for Mother Earth Environmental Consciousness Society. So basically, we started this environmental NGO because there are many things about environment which people are not much aware of. What we think is people are aware of most of the things about environment, but it is not the case. The actual truth, the actual facts about environment are far worse than what people know. So that's the reason why we have started this. And through this, the two major activities that we do in MECONS include, one is conducting of workshops, which is environmental theme-based workshops. So we have developed around 14 modules on different topics. So we organize those workshops, and then we also do documentary movie screening, because I myself was motivated because of a documentary. I watched a documentary called An Inconvenient Truth in 2008, so which was also an Oscar-winning movie for a best documentary in that year, and it revolves around the life of Al Gore, the former vice president of USA. So he is the one who started his advocacy on climate change, and he started spreading the word throughout the world on the importance of climate change and why we need to combat climate change. And for that, he was also given a Nobel Peace Prize in 2008. So that's how my journey started with the documentary. Before that, even I was like anybody else. So of course, I used to be environmentally conscious, but not someone who takes a proactive step and starts something, initiates from his own side to do something about some issues in the environment. So that's how we started, and then I came across Vijay and Vivek, who are also like-minded like me, and then other friends who are also like-minded with us, and then they joined and we started doing these activities. And then I met Sheetal Garu in JCI, and I'm part of JCI now. So that's how we are associated, and that is how I came into this. Yeah, and coming to sustainability, everyone talks about sustainability nowadays, and even people in their schools, they come across this term called sustainable development. So what is sustainable development basically? What is sustainability simply? So sustainability is not a very complex word. Indeed, sustainability is something that our ancestors have been following, because the way they led their lives, they were all simple lives without consuming much of the resources. That actually forms the core of sustainability. So sustainability, to put it in simple terms, living in such a way, utilizing of resources in such a way that we leave some resources for the upcoming generations also. It's not like all the resources we consume now itself, and the upcoming generations, they don't have anything. So when you live sustainably, you also leave resources enough so that the upcoming generations also live peacefully. So that is what is the core of sustainability. So but then yes, we get to know about sustainability, but people always ask me, how do we live sustainably in our lives? What are the different changes we can make to ensure that we are living a sustainable life? So for that is what is a major thing that I'm going to address in this. So these things can be actually divided into different levels. So first and foremost, if we can see, it comes to individual level, and then family level. At family household level, what are the things you can do so that we can follow sustainable living? So before going to the individual level, very important aspect of sustainability that we would like to touch upon is the culture, the kind of culture that we have. I'm not questioning our culture, but the way our culture has changed in the recent past, in the past few decades, how we got mixed with the Western culture, and now we are at a situation where we are neither from our traditional culture, neither completely from the Western culture. Of course, it doesn't mean that we should completely follow the Western culture, because that's not a sustainable way. Because if you see, the kind of impact that the Western countries have on environment is very, very huge compared to what we have as a country, as Indians. So definitely our culture is far better than that, but there is still a lot of scope for development in our culture as well. If you take a simple example like usage of public transportation, once upon a time people never used to have their own vehicles. Most of the people, they used to travel in public transportation. That was the scenario a few years back, not even year, maybe a decade or two. But now the situation is everyone has two-wheelers, four-wheelers, if not one, they have two, three, and they use that because public transportation has become not so reliable. Of course, you may say that systems are at fault. Yes, ultimately systems are again being driven by people. So whatever, I mean, it's like egg chicken kind of thing. But anyways, what's happening is people are going away from public transport and embracing personal privatized transport, which is again it has a lot of impact on environment. So that is one cultural aspect. The second thing is littering. Littering has become very prominent. People are like, okay, I will throw it out, and the GVMC people or the municipality people will pick it up. So that cultural aspect should also change. That littering shouldn't be there. So no littering should become a part of our culture. Only then we can make it sustainable. Similarly, one more thing that has lost in these last few decades is eco-first thinking. So giving importance to nature first, that is something that is again lacking in the present scenario. Whether you take any international projects or national projects of big scale or even small scale, environment is given the least preference. Even if it is given the preference, it is given on paper, but whereas on field very little happens. So that culture should be gone. Instead of it, whatever we do, we have to ensure that environment is our top priority. If we do that, definitely everything will be sustainable. So these are some things related to culture. There will be many other things, but these are some things that I wanted to address. So one is no littering. Second thing is keeping environment in the forefront whenever we take any decision. And third one is of course the usage of transportation. So instead of using privatized transportation, let us use public transportation more. Of course, that should be something that should be coming from the top down. I mean, the government should be good enough to provide public transportation which people rely on, people like it, so that they start using it more. So these are the three things that we can address in case of cultural aspect. When it comes to individuals, there are many things we can do to continue a sustainable living, to have a sustainable living. So some of the things that are there, one is our buying choices. So what kind of choices do we have when we buy things? So what are the various things that we buy from outside? So I will start with fruits and vegetables. So when you go for fruits and vegetables, we have multiple options. We can buy them from supermarkets, we can buy them from local markets, which are also called Raitu Bazaars, or we can grow at our own homes. Of course, out of all these three, if you see, the best option is growing at home. It may not be feasible for everyone, but definitely if it is practically possible at your home, that is the best option to do. Because every product that we use, even the camera in which this is being recorded, or even the t-shirt that I am wearing, or the spectacles that I am having, all these things have something called carbon footprint. So which is basically the amount of carbon that the product consumed for it to be produced and then brought to the user. So the entire thing, which includes production, transportation, and then storage, and then ultimately it reaches you and you start using it. So that is how the carbon footprint of any product is determined. So if you take the case of supermarkets, the products, they come from far places. Some of them may even come from local places, but majority of them, they come from far places. So the transportation is involved, the production there is involved, and again they are not stored openly in typical room conditions. Rather than that, they are stored in cold places, or they have air conditioned spaces where they are stored. So those products which you buy in supermarkets, they definitely have very higher carbon footprint compared to what you buy in local markets. So not only that, when you are supporting a supermarket, you are not supporting a local market. Many of the supermarkets are national level chains or international level chains. So when you are supporting that, you are supporting a corporate which is at national level. But when you are supporting purchase at your local supermarket, that is better than the corporate supermarket. And when you are buying at Raitu Bazaars, that is far better than even local supermarkets, because you are directly buying it from the farmers. So you are not only encouraging the local economy, you are also supporting the local farmers. So that's how at every place, if you start thinking how much impact it has on an environment, what is the kind of transportation involved, what is the kind of storage involved, what is the kind of process involved. If you start thinking that, you will automatically identify which are the best ways to live sustainably. One more thing that we all do is the kind of clothes that we wear. So once upon a time, if you take examples of people like Abdul Kalam, they used to have only 2 or 3 pairs of dress, and they used to survive on that. And even though they had the capacity to buy more, they never used to buy more, because they didn't want to utilize more and more resources. But what's happening now, it's so fast. We call it as fast fashion. So like if you buy a t-shirt today, in a week or even a month, it becomes outdated. The design basically becomes outdated. And then people start going and buying new designs, new styles. So with this, what is happening is everybody is buying more and more clothes. So every cloth, again, it involves a lot of cotton. It involves, again, this also has a carbon footprint. So the more number of clothes that you have, the more number of clothes that you hold in your cupboards, the more is your carbon footprint, the more resources you are using from the environment. And these resources are something which have taken billions of years, sometimes millions or billions of years to form. And these resources you are using just like that. So imagine the impact that it has on the upcoming generations. So similarly, one more thing that is important is, one is of course the number of clothes that you have, and also how long are you going to use. Suppose if I am buying a t-shirt today, many people, they might wear it 10-15 times and then they dispose it off. Some people, they wear it for 2-3 years, which is very good. So some of us might have clothes which are from our, like for me, I have some clothes which are 10-15 years old, but I'm still wearing them. Of course, if your body doesn't fit, that's another case, but for me it's working till now, so I'm able to wear them even till date. So that is something that you can do, you can follow at your homes. So it should not be the case with only one or two of your cloth pieces which are your favorites. It should be the case with most of the clothes that you buy from market. So most of them buy in such a way that you can wear it for longer time rather than shorter time and dispose it off. And even if you are disposing of by any chance, instead of just dumping it into a dustbin, give it off to charity. So there are many people who doesn't have good proper clothes, so you can give it as a charity or donation to them, so that at least they can use it purposefully. And one more aspect that is very crucial, and which plays a very key role in environment, is diet choice, the kind of food that you are having. So basically we have vegetarians and non-vegetarians. So if you take the non-vegetarians have higher carbon footprint again. And again, this is because a non-vegetarian, they eat poultry, meat or fish, or of course if you go to Western countries, they even eat beef. Even in India, there are people who eat beef. So what happens is, when it comes to non-vegetarian, the amount of carbon footprint that the non-vegetarians have is higher than vegetarians. That's because whether it be cattle, whether it be poultry, a lot of resources go into rearing those things. So all these things are indirectly being consumed by you. So all the resources are indirectly being consumed by you. So, but apart from vegetarian and non-vegetarian, there is something called vegan. Of course, now it's become trending. Becoming vegan is something trending because it's not just because of a publicity stunt. It's not a publicity stunt basically, but it's because they have far lesser footprint compared to vegetarians and non-vegetarians. So not only that, the humanitarian aspect is also involved there, because you are not hurting any animal, you are not killing any animal for your needs. If you take dairy, you may ask, dairy is an important thing, milk is an important thing, but now research has been done so much that there are many scientific proofs that even consuming milk is not good for you. I would recommend you to watch a documentary called The Game Changers. I think it's a 2018 documentary. So if you can watch that, you will get to know the truths about dairy and its usage, what happens to us if we consume dairy products and all. So vegetarian is better than non-vegetarian. Veganism is better than vegetarianism. So veganism is better not just because you are reducing your environmental footprint, but also because you are improving your health, and humanitarian wise also it's better because you are not suffering any animal because of your needs. So this food is another important aspect, and believe me, if the entire people across the globe, if they become vegetarians, not even vegans, if they become vegetarians, that will have a huge impact on environment. The amount of impact that we have on environment because of rearing this cattle, fish, all these things, that's huge. So once we stop that, that will literally get down a lot of our carbon emissions, because thousands of hectares, not even thousand, if you take globally, lakhs and lakhs of acres of land is being used only for rearing these cattle, rearing these poultries and all. So that is one very crucial aspect. And then there are these small aspects, not small, but they are small, to literally say they are small, but actually they also have a good impact. These are simple choices, like using a straw. When you go out and have a juice or a coconut, are you using a straw or not? If you are not using, that's very good. But if you are using, again, those straws do make some contribution eventually. It may be one small straw at that point of time, but imagine billions of people using straws every day, and imagine so many straws accumulating throughout the year. So that's a huge thing. So when what we generally think is it's a small thing, what difference will it make? It's just like drop and drop makes an ocean. So similarly, whatever small initiative that you take, it will definitely help the entire planet. So same is the case with straw, same is the case with brush. The first thing that we do in our daily lives is using a plastic toothbrush. So instead of it, we can go for wooden toothbrush, which is available online. You can go to online e-commerce sites and you can search bamboo toothbrush or wooden toothbrush. There are an umpteen number of products that are available online. So that is one aspect. And similarly also cutlery, especially when we come to partying at homes or functions at our homes, we see that majority of the functions, they use these thermocol plates or paper cups or paper tiffin plates. So these are all again have higher carbon footprint, and also they are disposed of immediately after use. So instead of it, if you use the traditional stainless steel alternatives, that's going to have a huge impact. That's going to reduce your carbon footprint a lot. Same is the case with decorations. The kind of decorations that were done traditionally in our homes, like using the coconut leaves or banana leaves or flowers, that was very good, because of course it consumed a little bit of resources, but then it is fine. But rather than that, we are again going for the use of plastic. A lot of plastic is being used. The use of balloons are again a kind of plastic. So all these things are again creating a waste which is lying there for thousands of years. So again, your impact on environment is increasing. One more important aspect is usage of electronics. Just like in case of clothes, people have become addicted to clothes. Similarly, people also have been addicted to electronic devices, especially phones. So nowadays, if a person buys phone, within 1 or 2 years, he is again going to change the phone. That's the kind of trend it has become. But the important thing is, you are buying a phone, but how efficiently are you using it? You are not using it efficiently. I'm very sure 98% of the people who are buying their phones, they are not using all features from their phone. So one is, you are not efficiently using the product. Second thing is, you are disposing it off very early. So instead of it, if you continue using it for at least 3-4 years, that will actually reduce your carbon footprint. So this is one option that you have. And the second thing is regarding disposal of electronic waste. So many of us, what we do is we gather the electronic waste at our homes and give it to kabadiwala. So this kabadiwala, when he comes and takes all these things, and then they treat it in a way which is not unscientific, which is not good for the workers themselves, and it is also not good for the environment around them, because they release, they melt these things, so it releases some chemicals which again leach into the local environment or local water bodies, which again pollutes that local environment. So instead of it, whenever you are disposing in electronic waste, ensure that you are giving it off to authorized electronic recyclers. So these people, they actually use scientific standards to treat them. So that way what happens is, it is properly treated. The electronic or the metal items that are there inside that, they will be reused, they will be extracted and used again. And if some things they can be repaired again and useful and used, they repair it and they again sell it at lower prices so that the product is used again, which is basically refurbishing. So all these things happen if you give it to a proper channel through authorized electronic recyclers. And then similarly, when it comes to women, especially menstruating women, menstrual hygiene is one another important aspect where you can go sustainable, because many of the women, they use sanitary napkins. So instead of using sanitary napkins, if you start using menstrual cups, which is a plastic cup, but again the life of it is very high. It comes around 3 to 5 years easily. So a single cup without any wastage every month. So which again means you are going to reduce the number of sanitary napkins that you are going to use throughout your lifetime. So instead of using thousands of sanitary napkins throughout your lifetime of menstruating, you can use only a menstrual cups, which is again a far more sustainable way. So these are some things which one can do at individual level. So apart from that, there are things which we can do at a family level, at a household level. So the first and foremost and basic thing that we can do is waste segregation, which the government has been pushing from many years now. But then again, all the people are not doing it properly. Of course, they have their own reasons. Some say that the municipal workers are not collecting it. But anyways, whatever is the case, first we should be doing right, and then we can question somebody else. If you are not doing right and then questioning somebody else, you are not actually qualified to question anyone, because you are not doing right yourself. So that way, so ensure that whatever waste that is generated at your home, it is segregated into wet and dry waste. So that way what happens is, the scope for recycling increases. If you mix both of them, the recycling is very difficult process then. So that is, segregation is the first part that you can do. The second thing is the wet waste that you segregate, that can be used for composting at your home. You can do it aerobic composting, or you can go for vermicomposting. So once you use composting, once you do the composting, you will get compost, which is basically a fertilizer. That again you can use, if you have plants, you can use it for gardening. So along with composting, gardening is one another good thing that you can do. So not only you are growing more plants, maybe you can grow your own vegetables and fruits. That's again more sustainable, like we discussed in the initial topic. So that is one aspect where segregation and then composting is one thing. The dry waste that is segregated, most of it can be recycled if you give it properly to. If it is electronic, you can give it to electronic authorized electronic recycler. And if it is other waste like plastic waste or even paper waste, that you can even send it to the kabadiwala, because from there it goes to the major recyclers in the country. Similarly, there are a few things which are important for a household. Like every household, they have a drainage connection, they have a sewage septic tank where the toilet waste goes. So these are some things that are important for a household. Here also you can have, there are many alternatives that you can follow to make your lives more sustainable. Like suppose in case of apartments, they have what is called STP, which is sewage treatment plant, which is typically there in most of the big apartments and even commercial complexes. But instead of it, there is something called reed bed system. Reed bed system is where it's like zero energy input. Typical conventional sewage treatment plant consumes a lot of energy and it stinks like anything. Instead of it, if you go for a reed bed system, there is no energy involved, because it's a physical gravity based system where you send all your sewage from one side, and from the outside sometimes the quality is so good that you can drink it. Yes, it's true that you can drink it. There are many cases where it has been proven. So these kind of systems are there, but people are not aware of it, so they are not embracing these technologies. So that is one thing. And we also have concept of what is called composting toilets. Of course, it's a little bit difficult to implement, but definitely it's also doable. So composting toilet is also there, and I have recently came across a product called Aquatron. I'm not trying to promote anything, but I'm promoting the technology, which is really good, because where it separates the liquid from solid, and the solid again becomes compost in 3-4 months. So that compost can again use for plants. So these are all different technologies that are coming up, but people are not aware of it, or the builder whom people are relying on, they are not aware of it because they are not upgrading themselves and they are not embracing these technologies. One more thing that is one of the major concern is the electricity consumption. So whatever electricity that we are consuming as of now in India, out of it almost 59 to 60% still comes from coal. Though we keep on saying that our solar power generation capacity is increasing, the amount of solar installations across India have increased. Yes, they have increased, but our dependency on coal is not decreasing as much as it should be, because coal is something, it's not a renewable resource. It is a depleting resource. So eventually we are going to go get out of coal, and then it's going to be horrible. So instead of it, we have to shift to other alternative technologies, renewables. So solar is one good aspect as of now, so which is accessible to everyone. So if you have a good rooftop and you have a little efficiency to invest in putting up a solar plant, that's a very good idea, because again, when you put up a solar plant, there are two options. One is you have an inverter separately for that, or you can have a smart meter. So the same meter, it's a bidirectional meter instead of unidirectional. So whatever energy is generated from the solar, it go back to the grid, and whatever you have consumed from that, the amount that goes from the solar is deducted, and the balance is billed. That is what happens in that one. So even that option is there in majority of the major cities now. And one more energy guzzler, rather than energy guzzler, I should call it as water guzzler, is water purification. So what happened in the past few years is people have become addicted to RO. So whenever we talk about purification, whenever we talk about water purification, what comes to people's mind is only RO. But this is absolutely wrong. The kind of water purification technology that you are supposed to use should depend on the kind of water that you have. If your water have very high TDS, then only you should be going for RO. Or else you can go for alternative technologies like UV, which is ultraviolet, or UF ultrafiltration. So these are some technologies that you can embrace instead of utilizing RO. So what is the disadvantage with RO? RO, you get very pure water. Also, we know that these days there are a lot of talks around demineralization of water because of RO. So what is happening, even if you take the commercially available bottled water, they use RO, purify water, and then because it lacks minerals, they add additional minerals. So that is like, it's a waste step. The minerals that are already available in water, you are losing it because of a technology. So instead of using RO, use other alternatives based on the kind of water that you are treating. And then now we are in summer. Of course, many of us are under lockdown, so we may not be feeling the heat as much when we were traveling outside, but still many of us feel heat inside also, and many of us use air conditioners. So when it comes to air conditioners, the amount of temperature that you set at your home is again very important. If you are setting it at 18 degrees or 20 degrees, it's going to consume a lot more energy than what it does when it is set up at 24 or 25 degrees. That is ideal. So at our home, if at all we use air conditioner, we set it definitely at 27, not below 27. That's because people are generally convenient at 24, 25. So but what happens is, suppose I go out, it's really hot, and then I come inside and I want the room to be cooled immediately. So what I do is I switch on at 16 or 18, which is wrong. So don't do that. So when you come inside, switch on at 24. It will take some time, but your body also needs that time. So immediate fluctuation from 24 to 18, or not 24, 34 or 40 or even 50 to 18 is like a shock for your body. So instead of it, use 24 degrees. Even government also recommends that. government has also done this recent change where all the new air conditions that are being produced in India, they will have a default temperature of 24 degrees centigrade when you switch on it. You won't be able to get it down below 24. So that is something that government had done for the upcoming installations, equipments. But already existing, they don't have that facility. So individually, we have to ensure that we are putting it 24 or above 24. And of course, one more thing that we all are fond of is plantation. Many people do plantation, it's really appreciable. But then again, you have to choose plants which are native. So plants which are native to your locality. If you choose such plants, what happens is the chances of their survival will be more, and they will be actually useful for the biodiversity around you. So if you get a plant from somewhere else and try to adapt it here, not only it might consume a lot of water, it may not be useful at all for anyone. So that is what is happening with majority of the plantation programs. So they buy whatever plants that are easy to grow, but unfortunately many of them are from other places, so they are non-native plants. So eventually you end up spending a lot of money, but they don't survive, or the maintenance is a lot of maintenance is involved. That is again a lot of resources are wasted in the process. So selecting native plants is again very important. So also ensure that whenever you are creating a garden at your home, you have as little lawn as possible, because lawn is something that consumes a lot of water. So you don't want so much of fresh water to go into lawns. So this way there are many aspects. I mean, these are some things that came to my mind when Sheetal Garu asked me to facilitate a session. But if you really start exploring it, every aspect of your life, you can find many alternatives. The only thing is you have to search for alternatives. Unless until you search, you won't get all this information. So if you want to live a sustainable life, you start exploring yourself. You will find solutions. Maybe you can create some solutions also. So that way, definitely you can live a sustainable life. Thank you again. Thank you for listening. Thank you Sheetal Garu and Prerna for asking me to deliver a session. Thank you very much. Hopefully every one of you will take some steps at least to make your lives more sustainable. Thank you.
That was a load of knowledge on how we can contribute to a sustainable living. I'm sure all my viewers would implement all this in their day-to-day life. Let's all be a responsible citizen and make this earth a beautiful place to live in. Thank you Ravikant sir for giving so many valuable inputs. If you love the video, then please do like, comment and share it to all your dear friends. And if you are new to here, then please do subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to receive further notifications. Bye bye friends. Meet you next week, same day, same time. Bye bye.